Hi, my name is Conan Chung, and I'm the Senior Executive Officer over Service Development at Metro. Thanks for coming to our workshop today. I just wanted to take a couple minutes and let you know about our bus plan. So it's been about 25 years since we've looked at our entire bus network, and since then, more than 1 million people have moved to LA County. There's new places to go and new ways to travel. So it's about time that we relooked at our bus network to see if we can build something that's more reflective and relevant to the way you travel today. So Metro has a strategic vision, Vision 2028, and that calls for us to create a world-class bus network. Now, a world-class bus network needs to be both competitive and attractive. NextGen is really focused on the competitiveness of the bus system, which includes being fast, frequent, and reliable for everyone within LA County. Now, here's a roadmap that takes us from where we are today up to developing the world-class bus system. The first thing we want to do is reconnect with our customers. And what I mean by that is that we need to develop a service plan that's based on where you go today, when you travel, and how we coordinate with the municipal operators so that you have seamless service throughout the county. Once we fix the bus network, we want to create transit infrastructure that supports the bus network. And when I talk about that, those are things like speed and reliability improvements, bus lanes, queue jumpers, signal priority, and so forth that gets the bus through the congested streets faster. Also creating safe and comfortable waiting environments, because we know from all of our surveys and outreach that your waiting environment and getting to the bus is equally important as being on the bus itself. And then finally, optimizing our operations so we're not spending valuable resources wasted trying to find a layover location where we can use that resource to put into more service for you. Now, throughout the last 2 years, we've done a lot of talking to people. We've actually reached more than 10 million people, and we've received over 14,500 comments. We've been through about 260 different workshops, community meetings, pop-up events, and so forth. And you can see all the other outreach we've done throughout the last 2 years. Based on all that outreach and a lot of data analysis, we've had a lot of lessons learned that we tried to translate into service concepts. The first one is that we know that 84% of LA County residents have used transit at least once in the past year. That means a lot of people rely on transit for one trip or another, so we want to make sure that we minimize the discontinued segments so that people have access to transit wherever they are in LA County. The next lesson is that we need to consider fast, frequent, and reliable service as critical components of a competitive network. We also saw that we're not always competitive where people want to go. So we want to build a network that connects the dots and reflects the way that people travel today as well as tomorrow. We've also seen that the greatest opportunity to grow ridership isn't necessarily during the peak hours, Monday through Friday, but it's also during the midday and into the evenings when many trips are shorter distances. And finally, we need to integrate Metro's equity framework into anything we do within the planning process. So here's an example of how my ride or your ride can improve with NextGen. Currently, if I need to go pick up my child at daycare at 6 p.m., I leave my office at 5 p.m. With shorter wait times, I would get to the bus stop a lot faster than I would under the current situation. And then with the bus, we would expect to see faster travel times with less stops and, again, more signal priority and other transit infrastructure. And then finally, if I have to transfer, more frequent buses allow me to transfer much faster. And then finally reach my destination well before the 6 o'clock daycare time limit. Now, for another example, if I get off work late and I want to go home as soon as I can, under the current situation, because the late night service isn't as frequent as we would like, the wait time is longer than we would see under NextGen. Again, with the travel time, we would see slight improvements. And then finally, I'd get home a little over 25 minutes before I would under the current situation. When I said that our system isn't always as competitive to get people where they want to go today, This is a slide that shows you where our current ridership is compared to where all trips are made within LA County. So the map on the right-hand side shows you where our current riders are, and they're largely centered on where we have the most service put out there within the county. If you look on the map to the left, what you notice are the intensities of all trips based on cell phone information that we were able to get that captures all travel within LA County, no matter what type of mode you travel on. And you can see that there's a mismatch between where our current ridership is dense versus all trips being dense. So we want to make sure that we, again, provide the service to meet our current customers' needs as well as where we have future opportunities. Now, again, when we look at trips in a different way, we can look at trips by trip distance. Currently, we spend a lot of effort trying to capture a lot of the commute trips. Those are trips that are 10 miles or longer. What you see here on the chart to the right is that the long distance trips only account for about 16% of all travel within LA County. But we do a pretty good job. We carry about 6% of them. But what you also notice there is that the majority of trip making, the 46%, are shorter distance trips between 1 and 5 miles. We're not doing very good there. We're only carrying about 2% of that market share. If we're able to capture actually 6% of that market share, we would actually increase our trips that we carried per day by about 500,000 new trips, and that's substantial. When we look at the trip distribution by time of day, this is another way to look at it. We see this chart again to the lower right. What you see here is that the commute trips, again, the Monday through Friday, longer distance trips are shown in the light blue. Now the travel pattern there is usually during the peak hours, AM peak and PM peak, we have more demand and less demand during the midday, early morning, and late evening. When you look at the orange in the background, that shows you our distribution of service. Now that service distribution largely follows the pattern of the commute trips. But when you include all the other trips that people make, whether it's going to the market, going to daycare, the doctors, even going to jobs that are close by to your house, perhaps at a restaurant or a service center or a retail outlet, you see that the majority of trips, which are all the blue, the darker blue columns, when you load that on top of the commute trips, most of the travel within LA County is during the midday into the PM peak and into the late evening. So again, there's a mismatch as to when we provide service against when the demand occurs. Now, I mentioned that we have to do everything against our equity framework. Right now, there's regulation that requires that we ensure that we do not disparately impact minorities and low income. However, within NextGen, we know that there's a lot more people rely on the bus than just low income and minority. And what you see here are some of the other communities that we want to make sure that we're providing good service for. Now on to capital improvements. As I mentioned earlier, Reconnect really redefines the service plan to be more reflective of the way you travel. Next is with Transit First, we want to build the capital improvements that support that Reconnect plan. And when we look at capital improvements, they can be categorized into 3 areas. The first one is speed and reliability. We want to make sure that you're not waiting too long for the bus, that when you get on the bus, it's fast and reliable and predictable, and it's consistent and simple in terms of the routing. While you're at the stop, we want to make sure that you feel comfortable, that you feel safe and secure, and you're well informed. And then finally, when you're riding the bus, we want to make sure that it's quick and easy to get on and off the bus. We have a smooth, quiet ride, and we provide you with the information that you need in order to get to your final destination. Now, one interesting concept that we're proposing within NextGen is to configure all of our routes to be more like a rapid, but still maintain the benefits of a local service. And what I mean by that is that you can see on this chart that we want to make sure that we have frequent headways throughout the NextGen service plan, especially in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 areas. We would have closer stop spacing compared to the rapids because, again, access to the stop is just as important as being on board the bus. But you can see all of the other attributes of Rapid. We actually capture many of those, and we've actually added a few more that the Rapid programs don't have. These attributes really try to speak to speed and reliability, improving your wait time and your wait locations, and also to make sure that the service is reliable and predictable. And here's an example on Venice Boulevard. Currently, you can take line 33, which is a local line, and it takes you roughly 4 minutes to get to your bus stop if you walk or roll. You're waiting 10 minutes, and then you would ride 36 minutes to your final destination. So your total travel time there is roughly 50 minutes. Now the Rapids, which many people think are faster, you can see because you have to walk further or roll further to your bus stop, you're spending 10 minutes getting to the bus stop. You would wait an equal 10 minutes, and you would gain a few minutes on your ride time. But overall, when you calculate this travel time total from end to end, you're looking at 53 minutes, which is 3 minutes longer than the existing local. With our NextGen hybrid or optimized service, what you see is that your walk or your roll to the bus stop is about 6 minutes, a little bit between the local and the Rapid. You would wait 5 minutes because we would combine the services between the local and Rapid, and then you would ride about 35 minutes. So overall, it's about a 46-minute total travel time, which is an improvement over the local and the Rapid. Now with Transit First, with the transit priorities that we're proposing, we would actually see an even more greater improvement in your total travel time. So in a nutshell, this is our plan. What you see here on the map is a full complement of frequent services all the way to less frequent services. As you can see with the dark red lines, those are services that would operate every 7.5 minutes from AM peak through the midday and into the PM peak throughout the day. The gold colored lines would operate between 7.5 to 10 minute frequencies. The greens would be 11 to 15 minute frequencies. The blue lines or corridors would be 16 to 30 minutes. And then the purple lines would fill out the network with the 30 minute or greater frequency services. What you also see here are the Metro rail lines in the darker gray, as well as Muni lines and Metrolink lines all in gray. So when you add together all the Metro services, as well as the rail lines and the municipal operators, there's a robust network that provides coverage and access throughout the LA County area. And in fact, more than 80% of Metro's bus riders would have frequent all-day service compared to 48% today. So when we look at the results between all of these scenarios that we talked about, you can see that with Reconnect and Transit First, we maintain the same amount of service levels that we have today at 7 million hours. But with Transit First, we can actually increase the amount of revenue miles we operate because we're going faster. And what that means is that when we can put more miles out there, in this case 5.5 million more miles every year, that means more trips. So for the same amount of resources, we can actually provide more service. What you also see here are that the high frequency lines, the lines that go every 10 minutes or better, significantly increase between the existing into the Reconnect plan and into the Transit First, especially during the weekends. What you also notice is that people within walk access of high frequency service increases more than doubled. Our ridership projections here with Reconnect, we expect to see an increase of 5 to 10% in our ridership over current conditions today. And with Transit First, we see a 15 to 20% increase in ridership, which is substantial. And again, we tried to minimize lost coverage for people throughout the system because we know that many people count on bus service within LA County. So a couple of takeaways for you to consider when you walk through our workshop today. More than 80% of Metro's bus riders would have frequent all-day service. Improvements are all about travel time, but not just that. It's also about access and comfort while waiting for and riding the bus. And finally, we want to develop a 7-day-a-week network for all trips, not just for commute trips. So with that, please enjoy the public workshops. We're having them during the February and March time period. You can see on our next steps slide here that we plan to have public hearings on the service plan in June, with Service Council approvals in August and board approvals in September. If all that happens, we would start implementing our service plan in December 2020, and it should last for 2 more years after that. And throughout this whole time period, we're also going to be building out the capital program. And you can see that on the slide as well. So with that, I recommend that you enjoy this workshop, and thank you for spending a few minutes with me.